move Clemson into a board
Senator
regents, I think
from
is
Richland, Senator Harpoolian, what purpose do you rise, sir?
context with the will.
Senator, would you yield to a question?
Yes, sir.
Senator yields for question. Senate, before we do that, Senate, please be in order.
So
Senator from Richland.
Senator, we met this morning. We discussed a number of different alternatives. I've been talking to you for the past couple of weeks. My question is this: is there any? Well, first of all, are you going to support the bill as it currently is? Are you opposing?
Currently is no,
Yeah.
I'm not.
And I mean, we talked about a number of different alternatives. What would your bill look like?
I would look very close to what Senator Young proposed in Amendment 9.
But
Well, the but is, just like we've seen all day long, it's the last day of the session, and I have conferred with leadership in the House, and I just don't believe at 20 minutes till 5 that we got any assurance.
you began speaking on this yesterday.
Yes. We didn't have Amendment 9. We didn't meet until this morning, Senator.
I mean, your position is...
I understand your frustration. It's 20 minutes till 5. It's not going to happen. Just a good discussion for where we go next year. A lot of good came out of the discussions. I understood more about what you were concerned about after our meeting this morning. I understand after meeting with Senator Talley and Senator Young what the committee heard over the time that they've been working on this.
Does your decision and opposition to any change, because we don't do anything in the next 20 minutes, it will status quo, is that based on...
No, sir, that's wrong as a supposition. Nothing is going to change anyway. Everybody who is currently on the board is going to stay on the board.
Until election next year?
What? Not even then. They have a term. If we had the
legislation would change that.
Right. And when we come back in January, there's time to change that.
But you're not in any hurry.
I am not, because nothing's going to change between now and January.
But one of those people we're talking about is your law partner. Does that in any way affect your decision here?
No, it doesn't. I haven't talked to him about it.
Well, I'm sure you haven't talked to him, but he's...
You asked me today if I sent him a copy of this amendment. I haven't. I am my own person.
But you understand how that looks, do you not?
No.
That you'd be voting on and holding up a bill that would affect your law partner's term on the Board of Trustees?
The Senate will be in order.
University of South Carolina. It doesn't bother me. You can say what you want to about me. If that's what you're trying to do. Senator,
Trying to understand how
I told you from the beginning that right now there are 22 members on that board, and 7 of them come from counties with less than 75,000 or 80,000, whatever the cutoff is. And I was very concerned that we have geographic representation. And when you move this board from 22 to 14, which was what the proposal, you're basically going to eliminate all the rural slots on the board. So one of the mechanisms they came up with that was suggested, well, let's go to the regional campus approach, because some of the regional campuses are in rural areas. But others said, why would we handpick a few counties that designate, just like the senator from Charleston was saying, we can't designate everybody, the citadel's got to come from Charleston anymore. It's an interesting concept of how to deal with the rural issue, but probably not the right one.
But under the amendment that was just passed, you'll have the same 16 circuits. The folks right now that are on that board that represent the rural counties are from those 16 circuits.
Right.
That wouldn't change.
No.
So
look, if this bill was going to pass, that'd be fine.
Well, if you sit down, it would.
No, it wouldn't, because then it's got to go to the House, and the House has a totally different bill, and they are not going to concur, all right?
So they don't concur.
Right, so we end up in conference in a bad posture, and we're not going to do that.
And what's the bad posture? We have our position.
They have a bill that almost nobody in here wants. If they're not going to concur with what you believe to be a reasonable, I mean, you believe Amendment 9 is reasonable. You've had all day to convince the House of that. That isn't happening.
That happens in conference. It doesn't happen with me walking over there and talking to a random House member.
That's why we do not do our best work with 20 minutes left, and we're not going to do.
But you've participated in putting us 20 minutes left.
Senator, I did what I have told you from the beginning. I've stood up for rural South Carolina. I'm going to continue to do that, whether it's on this or anything else. And I know you told me that Irmo was in your district and it was rural because they had okra. I get it. That's the extent of your understanding of rural is that Irmo has an okra strut. That's it. And so if you if that's all you can understand, I understand that you come that way. I don't.
I
When was
understand.
talking to the
I
senator from
understand.
McCormick
I
the other day
understand,
about livestock
Senator. I
trailers,
understand
I didn't
rural.
think you knew what that
I understand
was.
the current system that you like has rural. This system is the same system
That's right.
that you like, and yet you still oppose it.
No.
Why?
I told you I would support it in January. Because then we have some control over what the House might do.
So you tell the guy that basically pressured the university to let kids in that weren't qualified. You tell the guy
He would
who,
be here in January. If we pass this bill,
and he's going to be running the university with a new president coming in July for the next 6 months.
Hopefully, as I understand it, there's going to be a new board chairman elected in August.
Well, he's not the chairman. He's been there 47 years.
Okay. Well, and if we had an election tomorrow, he'd probably be there again if he ran.
Well, if you were running the war, they'd be speaking Russian in all of Ukraine right now. Thank you.
Thank you. So, it's always fun to talk to my colleague from Richland. It is time to get home, but we don't have anything in the box right now. And look, there's a lot of good at the University of South Carolina. There's a lot of good concepts that have come out of this discussion. This whole idea of treating all the universities the same as it relates to longevity on the board, as it relates to term limits, as it relates to how we select the trustees. It's a discussion worth having across the board for all universities. And that's why I mentioned a minute ago that in some states, like North Carolina, they got a Board of Regents that governs all of the public universities, all of the state universities. At the risk of bringing up a name that almost nobody followed anything he said, Governor Sanford did propose that at one point in time, as he proposed many other concepts. That one may have been one that actually has some merit. I think, as I've observed the way Board of Regents work, that may be a good model for us. But that's not a model we're exploring. The only thing we're exploring right now is reorganizing where the seats are, but not who holds the seats. The way to do that is for the screening committee to screen out the people that ran, and we vote them up and vote them down. That didn't happen either. So if that's not going to happen this year, this isn't going to happen this year either. But what I want you to know is this: nothing was going to change between now and January, because none of these seats were up. Even if we had elections last week, none of those people would have taken, their terms just aren't up yet, as I understand it, as it relates to USC at the very least. There might have been some of the other boards. But all of those positions are filled by current members that are going to be right there in January when we come back. So we will deal with this, and I do think that we ought to deal with potential of out-of-state board members. We ought to deal with term limits. We ought to deal with an issue of whether at a certain age people should move off and let younger people come on the board. Now, I agree that there's a lot of wisdom in this room, my colleague who sits there with me, and nobody's going to suggest that we don't benefit from having somebody who's been here for many, many years, although the senator from Richland seems to think that that's a really bad thing. But let me say this: the people from the area that he represents, nobody ran against him as they were satisfied with him.